My name is Charles Harrell, and I am interviewing Mr. John Love, a World War II veteran. For the record, Mr. Love, would you please state your full name and your date of birth?
John R. Love. Birth is 12/29/20.
And your current address?
13717 Long Branch Road, Woodford, Virginia, 22580.
Mr. Love was recommended for this interview by Mr. Ernest Cornwell. Present today include myself, Mr. Love, and his wife, Mrs. Love. What war did you serve in, Mr. Love?
World War II.
And can you tell me your branch of service?
Provost Marshal Military, M.P, Provost Marshal Military Police.
And what was your rank when you went in and finally when you came out?
It was private and came out as sergeant.
And can you tell me where you served?
Buffalo, New York.
Were you drafted or did you enlist, sir?
I was drafted.
Can you tell me when?
March 22nd, 1945.
And where were you living at that time?
Racell, West Virginia.
Where was that? I'm sorry.
Racell, West Virginia.
Okay.
It's over in the southern part near Tazewell, Virginia.
Is that where your family was from?
Yes.
Why did you join?
Why did I join? I felt like I was obligated to serve my country and protect the freedom we have. I came from a large family of service people. In fact, 9 out of my immediate family served.
Can you tell me something about your family?
My father, he served in World War I in Germany, Med Corps, and I had 2 brothers in the Navy in World War II, my sister in the WACs, 1 brother in the CBs. I was in the Army. 1 brother served in the Navy during the 40s. He came out in the reserves and went to Japan a year and then sent to North Korea for 11 months in 1st Cavalry Division, mechanized cavalry. And another brother, 2 more brothers served in Korean War, 1 in the Vietnam.
What did your father do during the Great Depression?
In civilian life, what did he was supervisor on construction, buying tractor timber for lumber companies and farming and just ordinary farm life mostly.
And you were about 24 when you went into the service.
Yeah.
What were you doing before you were drafted?
I was working in coal mines. I was registered in the first group, and when I was called the first time, I had a broken foot, so that's why the delay came in me going in as late as I did, I think.
Can you recall why your foot was broken?
I was broken on the job.
As a coal miner,
Mining car wrecked and caught my foot.
So you were in the mine digging for coal. So you possibly could have gone in 42.
Yes.
but you had a broken foot.
Yes,
Did they call you up any other time?
No, that one call I got, and I reported, and with a broken foot, and they told me to go home, and they would get me later, so it was 45 before they ever did finally call me. And I don't know why, because I searched my records in 46, and on my records there's no prolonged standing or walking. I didn't do anything to get it on the records, but that's the way it ended up.
So in March 23rd, you said you went in?
22nd.
On 22nd. You showed up at the induction center, and you signed. What did you do when you got to the induction center on that day?
They sent us from Welch, West Virginia to Camp Atterbury, Indiana. From there to Fort Lee. Fort Lee, I went to Chicago. Chicago back to Fort Lee. Fort Lee to Fort Dix. Fort Dix to Buffalo.
By that time, was the war in Europe over?
No.
So you went from town to town, pretty quick succession.
Right. I was in Buffalo when Germany and Japan surrendered.
Do you recall your first day of service when you showed up at boot camp?
Oh, yes.
Could you tell me your experience that day?
Well, Fort Lee, at that time it was Camp Lee. They changed the name. It was a quartermaster, so it just the basic training that we started out in was infantry and mechanical work, truck driving and things like that. And immediately we started at that. And then that's why we went to Chicago. Teamsters was on a strike up there, so they sent 200 drivers out of Fort Lee to 2 officers to Chicago, and we stayed up there 3 weeks.
Did you go through some type of training to become a truck driver?
No. I was an experienced driver before I went in service. I started driving a truck in 1939, April. So I had a whole lot of experience.
Were they big trucks or?
Yes.
Big trucks. Do you remember what you were carrying when you went to Chicago?
After I came out of service, I drove over the road tractor and trailer for 21 years, Associated Transport, and retired from them after 21 years.
When you showed up at boot camp that very first day, do you recall what you went through, who you talked to?
Well, orientation, and they always explain to you that why you're there, and some of the things you'll be doing and training, and just more or less getting you settled down to start your training.
You had been called up first in 1942 sometime and had that broken foot. Do you remember the attack of Pearl Harbor and what you were doing that day and how you found out about it?
Yes, I was working in the coal mines and heard it on the news.
And you still lived at home?
Yeah.
With Dad? Can you describe to me some of the training that you had before you became a military policeman?
Before I became a military police?
In the Army, that is.
Well, we went through a basic training and, of course, rifle range. And I was on the rifle range keeping score the day that President Roosevelt died. That was our 4th anniversary, wedding anniversary.
So you were already married?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what your job was on the rifle range that day?
Yes, I was scorekeeper.
And how did you do that?
We kept on written score of what people were doing when they were shooting. And you have a target like bullseye, 3, 4, 5, and like this, and then you mark down score.
Do you remember any of your instructors from those first days in the Army?
Lieutenant Paulson was my squad leader when I was in basic training. Then he went into personnel after we finished our training, and I think maybe he may have been responsible for being on my records for long standing walk, because he knew I'd had the broken foot and all. But it didn't bother me. I didn't do anything to get out of marches or anything like that. I didn't know I was on my records until 2 years later.
Do you think that might have been one reason why you didn't get sent overseas?
Very possible, because it said on my records no overseas assignment.
You spent 6 weeks in basic training, and then what advanced training did you get?
Basic training mostly was for Pacific infantry, and we tried on A.P. Hill. We was over there about 3 weeks training jungle fighting, and I never did understand why, when it was on my records, no overseas assignment. I guess we don't understand the government anyway. And when I went to Buffalo, there was a company of 270 men and 4 officers, and then we got down to 8 men and 1 officer, and then they transferred us from 1241st to 1240th, and we were a detachment to 1240th headquarters in Governor's Island, New York. I didn't have any special training for this work. I guess it's one of them things where you're so short of help that you kind of use whatever they have. And I was not a regular military policeman, so I was classified as investigator. I worked 30 counties in New York State, and down around Painted Post and Penn Yan, Bath, Rochester, Syracuse, all that area.
What did you investigate?
Well, anything, robberies, murders, accidents, impersonation, whatever.
It wasn't just in connection with the military, it was civilian?
It was military, yeah.
Oh, I see. Did you ever get any murder cases that you solved?
The only one that we ever was involved with there was 2 people that were sentenced to 5 years in prison for murder, and they'd escaped. We captured them. And, 3 of our men shot a man and killed him. That was included in the investigation. And one man I was looking for in Buffalo, he disappeared from Buffalo after he came from overseas, and he was caught. He was a member of a gang in Arizona, and because they had his picture in True Detective magazine, where they had all his guns under his mattress, and the FBI picked him up, and some robberies, and then one woman checked in the Marine Hospital there in Buffalo, said she had been in service, and she had not been. So one guy out of California, he was in Buffalo impersonating an officer, and sometimes you would be working and come up on something, but generally I knew where I was going and who I was looking for. And desertion in Army in military service is a very hard thing to prove. All a person say, I intended to go back, and of course you could always AWL or something like that, but desertion in it would be very, very hard to prove.
Did you ever get in any dangerous situations when you did your job?
Well, I guess you could probably say yes. Michael Reagan, cousin to Ronald Reagan, former president, we were two investigators. He had Lockport and Niagara Falls and that area, so sometimes we would work together in Buffalo. Whichever one was in Buffalo would do something. South Buffalo one night, one in the morning, on Sunday morning, about 2 or 2:30, we went and picked up a guy, and he was in the kitchen with they had a single sink with a curtain dropped around it and trash under it. And he crawled under there, and Reagan, he went in the front door, and I went to the back door, and he hollered and said, I've got him, and went out, and he got to the car, which was a couple blocks away, and before I could get there was about 10 or 15 young people, friends of his, and between us, and threatened me, but nothing happened really.
Were you trained to use different type of firearms?
Oh yeah.
What type?
M1 rifle and 45 revolver we carried all the time in their job. And of course, she was trained with explosives of different kinds, hand grenades and things like that.
When you were a military policeman, did you wear a uniform or were you plain clothes?
Most of the time. Sometimes one or two cases I used civilian clothes.
Were there any cases that you dealt with that was highly intricate and complicated that you couldn't figure out what they...
Not really. One person there made a statement one time, if they transferred me out of Buffalo, he wouldn't worry about getting caught. So I didn't have too much trouble because, like I told people, a human being has habits just like an animal. If you learn the human being's habits, not too hard to track them down. And of course, we work with the FBI agents and city detectives and city police, and FBI agents come around every so 2 or 3 months and update us on crimes that are going on and whatever actually happened, and kept us updated to things, new cases coming up, and that helped a whole lot. And we had radios on the same frequencies as city police had. Also had key to the old, they had call boxes back then.
Did you have to go to civilian court to testify?
No, I never did. I had to go to court and get people who's going to be released, or maybe go when they're having a trial. I went to Jamestown, about 15 miles east of Syracuse, one Saturday and picked up a guy that was being released. I'd pulled 6 months for robbing a cab driver and taking his cab and his money. And there was a black cab driver, and he weighed about 220 pounds. So I taking the clerk who was off that day. This ride was about 165 miles, and got to be a bad person to get a 220-pound man down and stomp him and beat him up and take his cab and money, and got over to Jamestown at lunchtime, and they released him, and his name was O'Shea, and he looked like a teenager. Looked like he wore about a size 3 shoe. Just looked like a boy. But he worked that cab drive over. And one black guy, man, he robbed a place there, stole some fur coats and things, and I went to his house about 6 o'clock in the morning and picked him up. And we had several cases of where servicemen were had been discharged in transit and stopped off in Buffalo and was getting robbed. And I've taken some of them to jail and had them money locked in a safe and let them stay there for the night for protection. We found a colored man one time laying in the gutter on William Street, $1,100 in his pocket, drunk. But next morning we found out he had been discharged. Because as long as they were on their way home, never arrived at home, they were still under our protection. And once they arrived home, then that was the end of service protection.
You mentioned that there was over 200 men in your company, and then all of a sudden it turned down to 8 men. Could you describe what happened?
They were getting discharged, and this was after Japan had surrendered, and they wasn't getting any replacements. So after we got some more replacements later on, we got down to 8 and then built back up probably 60, 65. And then in October of 46, we were transferred to New York City, closed that operation up in Buffalo down. And then I was a maintenance sergeant.
And what were you fixing?
And we had 40 vehicles. They patrolled New York City 24 hours a day, military police. And my assignment was there. If New York City was attacked, someone attacked New York City, I was to go out in the field and keep all them vehicles operating.
Did you know anybody who you worked with that was transferred to a combat outfit and you didn't see again?
No, not that I was working with. Cause most of the people that I worked with had already been overseas and came back.
Were any of them wounded?
So Michael Reagan, he'd been in the old Ranger Battalion, 1st Rangers, during World War II. And so them people had served a long time in combat.
When the war was, that day when they dropped the atomic bombs, you remember that day?
Yeah.
Was there anything that you remember you felt when you heard about the bombs?
Well, I always feel like if you're going to fight a war, you fight it to win, and we didn't attack them, they attacked us. And if that's what it took to stop it, well, I had no problem with it.
Was there a time in the military where you thought that you might get shipped overseas and fight?
Oh yeah. When I was in basic training, I training for infantry. That's one sign that you're going overseas. But like I say, after the basic training, then my squad leader was a real nice person, went into personnel, and that's where we were assigned to different places, and evidently he just put it on there. When it was raining and mud, and it was crawling under barbed wire infiltration and all that, he told me to not go out there. And I say, I'm married and have one child, and probably the oldest one in the group at that time, and that may have been a reason.
When you went to Buffalo, did you stay on a base and live?
No, we were in the city.
And did you bring your wife and child?
No.
How long were you gone away from your family?
Like from 5th day of March to 22nd, being 2 years.
So you were gone and they were at home in West Virginia?
Yeah. I'd go home every so often, 2 or 3 days.
Why didn't you bring them to live with you in Buffalo?
Because my wife would never go to Buffalo. She's not one of these people that get out with other people today, so she's...
Even to you, did Buffalo seem to be a big city?
Well, at that time it was 13th in size. It was a large city.
Had you traveled a lot already before the war?
No, not a whole lot. Mostly West Virginia and North Carolina and Virginia. But I was always a person, still am, that whatever needs to be done, I'll do my part in it.
Were you given any awards or medals or citations?
I was given a good conduct medal, so.
Do you remember the day that you were awarded that medal?
Yes, when I finished basic training.
When the war ended in September 1945, did you have expectations you would go home?
Yes. I was drafted, and then they was discharged on point system, which I had no points about anything. So I was enlisted for 12 months, so end of that 12 months, I mean, that was it. You know. But I may have had to stay in there longer, I don't know, but I was assuring myself when this 12 months up, then I'm out.
Were you discharged in March of 1946?
5th day of March, 47.
5th day of March, 47. So that was 2 years almost.
Yeah. Well, first year I was in there when I was drafted.
Right.
Then I took and enlisted for a year. I was just discharged and
Enlisted again.
Enlisted for the purpose of having a date to knowing set date when you could come out.
How would you stay in touch with your family?
Letters back then. Wasn't too many telephones in part of West Virginia.
And your first child was born before you went into the service?
Yeah, she was born in February 42, so she was about 3 years old.
And did you have other children during that time you were in the military?
I only have 2 daughters. My youngest daughter was born on October the 26th before I came out, 46.
What was the food like that you ate?
Food? Well, we had to eat in a restaurant. When I first went to Buffalo, they had their own mess hall, and for a short time, and it closed up, and we used the restaurant all the time.
Was that a new experience from a man from West Virginia?
No, not really. I drive a truck from Charleston, West Virginia, Huntington, all these places, so I'd been used to that.
I see. Did you ever have a time when you did not have enough supplies to do your job?
No, not as I know of.
Was there anything special that you carried for good luck?
Sir?
Did you have anything special that you carried for good luck?
No.
Did you see any entertainers while you were in service?
Yes. Chicago would stay with the Shore Patrol, and they had theaters, movies, and in Buffalo, we patrolled cities, towns, and they had plenty of entertainment.
When you were in Chicago, you were new in the military at that time, am I right? Within the first few months?
Yeah.
And did you all sleep in one place and get up in the morning and drive and then go back, or what?
Yes, we stayed in the Navy had a motel out on Michigan Drive for the Shore Patrol, and we stayed with them.
Was there any humorous incidents that you remember that happened that were funny?
They were funny.
Yeah. Things that happened while you were in the military that were just plain funny, made you laugh.
They probably did. I don't remember.
Did you keep a personal diary?
I'm not hearing you.
Did you keep a diary or a journal?
No.
Did you pull any pranks? Or know of anybody who pulled any pranks?
Yeah, they always people pulling pranks in any organization. We had people that came out of combat, thought they were still in, and get drinking and run their fists through plate glass windows and everything else. And but organization like I was in, I mean, you know, they're not in the city. We had the old city auditorium, at least $1 a year there on Michigan and Broadway, and you got people working different shifts and all this. Not a very good place to pull pranks.
Did you have a nickname you went by, or did you know anybody else that you had nicknames for?
No.
Did you work with one particular person more closely than anybody else that you became friends with?
Well, like Ronald Reagan and Michael Reagan, he was the investigator on the other end of the state, and I was on east of Buffalo. So, you know, we were good friends. I had to do quite a few jobs. I had to requisition parts for the vehicles, fuel, done a little mechanical work, but my title was Investigator. But we didn't have any mechanics or anything, so whatever come up, the captain was always calling on me to do it. And so that's why when he rode into New York for promotion for me 2 times I know of. I was a PFC, private first class, and for a corporal, I never did make it. So when I did, I went from PFC to sergeant.
Were you given additional duties as a sergeant?
Yeah. You actually was required to be a sergeant to be an investigator, but like I say, they're short of men, and they had to use whoever they had, and so I went. The captain, our commanding officer, he lived in Niagara Falls at that time, and myself or Sergeant Reagan was in charge of the organization at nighttime. There was no officer there.
Did you spend a lot of time working at night?
Well, not a whole lot, but sometimes we'd be 8, 9 o'clock at night, 10, depending on what kind of case you was working on and what be the best suited hours to do it, because if we worked late at night, we started late in the day, but it depended on us. But we knew what we were looking for. We knew the best time to do it. And I've had to go out be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes you may get a call at 12 or 1 o'clock at night. So just like any other police work, you never know what's going to happen to the 24-hour period.
Did you stay in an apartment in Buffalo when you lived in Buffalo?
No, we had a auditorium. We had our own bed, rooms, 2 men to a room, and all this.
Who was your buddy you had to sleep with? Or share with?
Actually, I didn't. We had some people that lived there in Buffalo. Sergeant Curry. He went home at night.
When your service ended, and on March 5th, 47, you went home. How did you get home?
I went home on the 15th of February. I had terminal leave coming, but I was discharged on the 5th. I came by train.
And did you live at the same place that you lived before you left, before the war?
Yes.
Did you continue to talk with the people you made relationships with during the war, after the war?
Not very long, because most of the ones that I was with were older than I, and they went back to Illinois and different places, and soon I didn't hear from them again, but they were still in service when I left, and I tried to get in touch with them, but haven't been able to.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yes, American Legion.
And how long are you still involved with the American Legion today?
I'm paid up for life member, and I served as chaplain, then commanding officer, chaplain for 9th District American Legion.
After the war, did you use the GI Bill for any education?
No.
What did you do after the war?
I went back to work in coal mines to 53, and then after that I started driving truck over the road, long distance truck driving.
How did your military experience influence your thinking about war and the military in general?
Well, like I say, I came from a large family of service people, and we always believed in whatever it takes to protect our country and our freedom. We were always willing and ready to do whatever needed to be done. We could never understand why people, draft dodgers and all these different things.
Did any of your family get wounded or killed during the war?
None of them were killed. My father, he was in Germany. A piece of shrapnel hit him over the eye, made a little scar, and then brother, it's 80
in World
years
War
old.
One, right?
World War One.
Right. How about World War Two?
World War Two. Brother that lives in Grundy, Virginia. He was serving on an aircraft carrier, and shell hit close to him and knocked him down, but it didn't hit him. And that was it.
That was it.
Out of 9 people.
9 people went in the military from your family? How many brothers and sisters did you have?
There were 11 of us all together.
And 8 of them were brothers?
Yeah, 4 girls. And
were you one of the younger or the middle sons? Or?
I'm the oldest one.
The oldest, okay.
I just buried my youngest brother Monday, and he was 58 years old. He served in Vietnam, helicopter mechanic.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that I hadn't talked about?
Well, I guess there's a whole lot that I'd like to talk about. The treatment that the veterans have got from our federal government, the promises they made to the people before they went into service and during their time in service, but they didn't keep the word once the people came out.
What promise did they make to you?
Well, they promised to take care of them, such as medical, medicine, and education, which they did live up to, the education part. And some of the people that were wounded in service and were disabled got no help at all from the federal government. And I feel like the politicians up there in Washington sat up there and was safe when these people went in and were not getting any pay really for it, and came out and they deny them medical help when they get theirs free. I had one child, 3 years old, and my wife and her got $50 a month. When they taken everything out of mine, I was $23 a month.
Did you remember Roosevelt, President Roosevelt?
Yes.
How did you feel when you found out that he had died in Warm Springs, Georgia?
It really hurt because he was a president that I think turned this country around and got it back on the road that it should be on, because I would like to say the day that he died, I was on the rifle range keeping score. That was our wedding anniversary, 4th wedding anniversary, 12th day of April. And we had a parade that evening in winter uniforms, like about 90-degree weather. And see, I was working. I was driving a truck when the Social Security went into effect. I don't know how you could compare Roosevelt with other presidents because everything was at the bottom. It didn't have one way to go, and that was up. Anyone else may not have been able to do the same thing, but he had a way of really, I think, getting people together and getting them to do things that helped the country get back on its feet.
Was West Virginia depressed during the early 40s?
Yeah. Our presidents today, I don't know, they're buying their way into the White House, and I don't think that they're really leaders. If you're a multimillionaire or a billionaire, you can get into the White House. They're not. Honest people could not get there. It doesn't have anything, and I'd like to see it sometime go back to popular vote and put some honest people up there. Right now we have a majority of Congress and senators of Catholic belief, and this abortion and different things that I don't think that they're the right people to really be in that position to make laws. Our Supreme judges appointed by President of the United States for a lifetime. I don't think that's right. They should be popular vote.
The soldiers that are in Iraq today are going through what they might see as their own eternal struggle with fighting. Do you have any words for them?
Yes, I really hope that they all come back, and I hope the American people will support them. And even though if the war is not right or they don't think it's right, we still need to support our service people because they're not over there because they want to be over there. They're over there for a reason. We've lost most of our freedom in this country anyway, and if we sit around and lose the rest of it, well, then we're going to be hurting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Love, for your interview. I hope you can tell other veterans about my World War II Veterans History Project. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.